pray that according to the riches of his glory, he may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith as you are being rooted and grounded in love. In the name of the Holy Trinity, amen.
Amen.
Please have a seat. Well, today we're going to be continuing our series on the spiritual practices that help us to stay grounded and rooted in love. So over the weeks, we have looked at scripture, sacred text. We've looked at communion, receiving from God the bread. And today we're going to look at something that Paul says in his letter to the Ephesians to us this morning. He says and encourages us to think that we have to be filled with the Spirit as we sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. And so today we're going to look at the spiritual practice of songs, hymns, songs of praise, the gift of music and song. Doesn't it touch us in a different way than anything else does? And it also unites us, doesn't it? To one another and to God. Music has been shown to improve mood, to ease stress, anxiety. It can even help with pain and bring comfort at those times when we're going through a hard time. I remember this only too well in the years that I worked as a healthcare chaplain, and alongside our chaplaincy team were a team of healing artists, musicians, singers, who would come and bring music for the people, the patients, various people going through all kinds of different things. In particular, I remember when I worked in the outpatient cancer care center, and they would come and, you're there for a long time when you receive chemotherapy, and it can be quite discouraging. And they would come through and they would play guitars, they would sing, sometimes groups of people would come and sing different songs that maybe people even requested. All kinds of songs. Hymns, the Beatles, all kinds of different things. I witnessed how music and song really does help us, doesn't it? It can give us strength and courage. The term spirituals, we think of that particular type of song that's particularly associated with hard times. They're called spirituals. And spirituals, actually, the word spirituals comes from that letter to the Ephesians, where Paul says these spiritual songs. These are the songs that speak and sing of all kinds of human experiences and emotion. And we hear Paul in that letter delineating between psalms, which we read every week here, psalms which are the hymns of the Hebrew people that actually are meant to be sung, and also songs, hymns of praise, and then spirituals, spiritual songs. Now, African American spirituals, which we are probably, some of us are familiar with them, they proliferated especially during the 18th century. And they led, especially leading up to that time when slavery was abolished. Frederick Douglass, a 19th century abolitionist, an author and a former slave, he wrote about the power of singing spirituals during his time of bondage and difficulty and how that really lifted and helped him. He would sing, O Canaan, sweet Canaan, I'm bound for the land of Canaan. And that song, that speaking of Canaan, brought so much hope to them, thinking that this life was not all there was, but there would be another life after this, where life would be very different. Canaan was also a reference for the escaping slaves that the north would be their Canaan. That if they could get away to the north, then life would be very different. So the spirituals contained messages of hope, not only for the life coming, but for this life right now. Songs of faith, songs of resistance, songs of resilience have continued to nurture all of God's people, but particularly in times of hardship and pain. And I think especially right now, there's such a particular thing that we're going through right now that it can be, I notice myself, mentally I'm not as I was. It's affecting me mentally. I just can't think as straight as I used to. I think the effect of the anxiety and the uncertainty and all the loss we're going through. And so music and song can be something that can really touch us and just minister to us wherever we are. Now, following in that African-American spirituals tradition, the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, was included in our Episcopal hymnal. So in that huge body of hymnody from the Black Church has begun to be incorporated into the white churches, particularly into our Episcopal Church, but also the Lutheran Church too. So in 1982, in our pew, we have two hymnals, don't we? We have the blue hymnal and we have the Lift Every Voice and Sing. The blue hymnal, of course, is the traditional hymnal of the Episcopal Church. And then the Lift Every Voice and Sing, that's a companion hymnal that captures the gospel, the soul, the spirituals of the Black Church. And in 1982, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which has often been referred to as the unofficial Black national anthem, was included in our main hymnal. And of course, Lift Every Voice and Sing became the name of the hymnal that captures the African-American tradition, the culture, the songs, of which many of us know. We have some musicians here, and I don't know the history of music, but we owe a great debt to the Black Church and their music, because from it came soul and jazz. Music, we all it filters out as we receive the gifts of one another. Now this Lift Every Voice and Sing, we're going to actually sing some of it at the end of the service, and you might want to turn to it. It's very easy to find. It's just hymn number 1 in the Lift Every Voice and Sing. This is actually the second version we're in now. And if you want to take a look at that, as I'm just saying something about it, it's quite a long hymn. It has some very powerful words to it. Like many hymns, it was originally written as a poem by James Weldon Johnson. And he was an NAACP leader. He was the first Black professor hired by New York University. And he was also the US consul to Venezuela and later Nicaragua. But the poem that he wrote, the words there of that poem, the poem that he wrote was set to music by his brother, Rosamond Johnson. And actually interesting for us in Florida, it was first performed by 500 school children to mark the celebration of the anniversary of President Lincoln's birthday in 1900 on February the 12th in Jacksonville, Florida. So this song, this first song, had its birth, had its release into a broader, wider audience so that it would bless the whole church right here in Florida, in Jacksonville. You read the lyrics, and when we sing them, you'll hear. They capture the graveness of the experience of African American people. And yet they also have this sense of hope for a better tomorrow, freed from injustice and oppression and the challenges that face them. They call on God. So like in the tradition of the Psalms, when we read the Psalms, often we'll hear the psalmist pouring out their heart to God, just letting God know exactly how it is for them. And then as the psalm progresses, you hear this hope return. A person in the Psalms who might be, I feel like the cords of death are entangled around me. Everything that's going on, I feel like people have set a trap for me. There's so much hardship all around me. I don't know how I'm going to even make it through this. And then as the psalm continues on, you hear these little tiny tinkerings of hope. Yet, why be disquieted, my soul? I will put my trust in God. There's this call back to putting our faith in God. But once the things have been expressed, the difficulties have been expressed. And so this poem is very much like that. And in fact, it was later This song was later adopted by the NAACP. It was predominantly used as a rallying cry during the civil rights movements of the 1950s and 60s. And it's interesting because why I chose to speak about this week is it's very much in our Episcopal news this week, for us as Episcopalians, and probably more for clergy because, you know, we have time at home looking on all these websites, seeing what's going on. But its power to change still is continuing. Because this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, this year US Representative James Clyburn brought a bill to Congress proposing that this become our new national anthem, one of our new national hymns. Because in it is this incredible balance between the difficulty and the struggle and the country that we want to be, that we all want us to be, and not denying that we're not there, not denying the struggle that many of us go through at this time, but yet looking in hope to a brighter tomorrow, to a better nation for everybody. And so that bill has come before Congress, and the Episcopal Church, the Executive Council, they supported that bill. They were one of the groups of people that put their name to that bill, saying that they support that this is the time to have this song released in a more widespread way, so that we can really gain and be gifted by the gift of the Black Church and all that they've gone through these hundreds of years. And interestingly enough, I'm not a footballer, so I read that the NFL is going to include this song at the beginning of all its games this season as a way of a rallying cry for us joining together and saying, we're one people. And especially at this time when we acknowledge during this pandemic, we are all struggling together. And this song gives us such a sense of hope that even in the midst of struggle and difficulty, God will bring us through. So we give thanks for this song. And I want to suggest today that this song is a real gift to us from the Black Church. That spirituals themselves can be real gifts to us because they speak of just lifting our hearts towards God, and all kinds of music and song wherever you find. And I'll be interested as you go out, you can let me know. Some of us have these special songs or these special pieces of music that just touch our hearts and allow God to reach us in a very different way. So we give thanks today, don't we, for the amazing gift that God has given us in music and song, and the variety of musical genres and different types of songs and praise and spiritual songs that allow God to minister to our hearts through. I don't sing well, so I've invited, it would not be a gift if I sang. I've invited Betsy to just come and sing for us as a way of just ending, well, just the ending for my son. Please come and sing for us. And then, son, you're going to sing one of the spirituals.
Yes.
Thank you.
But I'm going to make it cooler, Mother Amanda.
Is it too warm in here?
Yeah.
Thank you, Betsy.
I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm gonna sing when the Spirit says sing, and obey the Spirit of the Lord. I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray. I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray. I'm gonna pray when the Spirit says pray, and obey the Spirit of the Lord. I'm gonna moan when the Spirit says moan. gonna moan when the Spirit says moan, and obey the Spirit of the Lord. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout. I'm gonna shout when the Spirit says shout.